The sweat began to drip down my forehead. I could feel my heart pounding through my chest. My eyebrows were slightly raised, my stomach was twisted in knots, and my mind was racing through numerous possibilities as I stared at my friend's expressionless face. I quickly glanced at his brother's shocked look and knew the decision I was about to make could haunt me for years to come. Jude and his brother John Paul are some of my closest friends, who unfortunately live 6 hours away in Wichita Falls, Texas. They are only 1 year apart, which has helped us get along extremely well throughout the years. However, I would be lying if I said we never had an argument, as our competitive spirits have resulted in numerous altercations. Most of the time, go-karting turns into bumper carts, chicken fights in the pool turn into free-for-all underwater WrestleMania competitions, and board games such as Monopoly turn into survival of the slightest hand. But by the end of our visits, we usually manage to have at least one fair competition. In previous years, our competitions consisted of who could build the coolest Minecraft base, who was the best outdoors laser tag player, and who was the best Monopoly player. It was July 2018 when I had once more endured the 6-hour drive to visit Jude and John Paul. But this visit, due to the scorching hot temperatures, we mostly stayed indoors. Bored out of our minds, we ended up playing a lot of poker, using toothpicks we had snuck from the kitchen to gamble with. The end of the week had arrived, and it was time for this year's competition, the ultimate poker tournament. We found ourselves seated around a small living room table with a deck of cards in the center and glasses of water by each contestant. The rules were simple. We would be playing classic Texas Hold'em. Everyone would start with 50 toothpicks, lose all your toothpicks, and you're out. The first few rounds went as expected, with people winning based on the luck of their hands. However, Jude and I both noticed that his younger brother had a terrible poker face. He would always grin when he got a good hand and sigh when he didn't. This made it super easy to call his bluff, the act of betting when you don't actually have anything good. Within half an hour of playing, it was no surprise that John Paul was out of toothpicks. Another hour went by with my toothpick count fluctuating between almost winning and almost losing when somehow Jude and I each had 75 toothpicks. John Paul, now the dealer, passed us our 2 cards, and I felt pretty safe when I saw I got a Queen of Hearts and a 7 of Spades. Without getting into the more difficult hands, the simplest way to win poker is to get a pair of cards with a higher value than your opponent. The Queen is the 3rd highest, which is why it was a really nice card to get off the bat. Jude and I both checked, which means we didn't bet any toothpicks and peacefully moved on to the next phase called the flop. This is where the dealer reveals 3 cards face up in the center of the table. Both players can use the cards in the middle to make better pairs with their hands. In the round we were playing, the flop contained a Queen of Clubs, a 5 of Diamonds, and a 10 of Hearts. This was an exciting flop for me because now I could pair my Queen in my hand with the Queen in the middle. Even though I had the 3rd best pair in the game, I didn't want to bet any toothpicks to raise suspicion, so I casually checked again. Jude followed with a check of his own, and now we were on to the second phase, the turn. During the turn, only one card is revealed. The card revealed to us was the Jack of Spades. After seeing this card, Jude moved 20 toothpicks up to the middle. Originally, my plan was to wait and see the final card, and then confidently bet with my high-value pair. But with Jude betting in the Jack in the middle, I was pretty sure he had a pair of them. The Jack is a good card, but not as good as my Queen. I quickly raised him 25 toothpicks, thinking my plan had worked to perfection. But then he caught me by surprise when he said, "I'm all in." If I folded, which means I forfeit that round, he would gain my 25 toothpicks. If I bet all my toothpicks, then this would be the final hand of the game, with one of us winning it all. I initially felt like I had the round secured, with my Queen defeating his probable measly Jack. But now I was stumped. What made him so confident to go all in? Or was this all an elaborate bluff? I was trapped going back and forth. I started shaking my leg and fidgeting with my toothpicks. I was trying to think of every hand that he could somehow magically have to beat me, and how slim those odds were. There was no way I could risk losing our first ever poker tournament. That title was so valuable. It could be my trump card at every poker tournament for years to come. Much more than my 75 toothpicks would be at stake. My future pride was on the line. But I was feeling pretty confident, so I told myself I just needed one sign to confirm he was bluffing. I stared at his face, looking for any signs of nervousness, anything as little as the flare of his nostrils, but there was nothing. His poker face was impenetrable. My heart went from rapid pounding to a slow echo that I could hear ricochet throughout my body. Greed had gotten the best of me. Everything was in slow motion as I pushed all my toothpicks up the table and said the words, "all in." My heart sank as Jude's expressionless face turned into a smile. He flipped over a pair of aces, the most valuable card in poker. His pair beat my pair of queens without a doubt. However, I did have one last lifeline, the river, which is the reveal of the final card. The only way I could win is if this card was also a queen, meaning I would have a three of a kind, which beats any pair. The river was flipped, and it drowned my hopes and dreams as a four of hearts was revealed, and Jude was pronounced the champion of our first ever poker tournament. Several days went by, and I was back in San Antonio, but I could never get that poker tournament out of my head. It wasn't until I returned back to my normal schedule that I experienced my epiphany. I was walking into my martial arts class when I noticed a fellow student who seemed to be having a pretty rough day. She couldn't prevent the tears from slipping down her cheek. It was then that I saw my master consoling her, which he ended by pointing to the door and saying, "When you walk through those doors, you don't need to hold onto the mask that you carry in your day-to-day life. This is a safe space where you don't need to be afraid to be your true self or slightly vulnerable." I recalled that throughout the entire poker tournament, everyone had hid behind a mask, a poker face. It was the first layer of defense. Who knows what damage could have been done had someone else caught a sign or even a glimpse of our valuable cards. But what I have come to notice is that even though some of you have never played poker, we all walk around with poker faces, and some are better than others. When walking around campus, the question, "How are you?" comes up a lot. And most of the time, we automatically respond with, "I'm fine, thank you," or "Good, you?" We are constantly giving inauthentic responses to people who genuinely care about us, as if revealing how we really feel would somehow jeopardize our potential. But over my 7 years at TMI, I've learned that this is a safe space, a loving community of friends and family. When someone asks you how you're doing, chances are they truly want to know. And when faculty like Father Nate and Mrs. Condry say that their doors are always open, it's no bluff. Around here, it's okay to take off the mask and feel a little vulnerable, because being your true self is so much more rewarding than hiding behind a poker face. Thank you.